Have you ever wondered how Airways Magazine became so successful? Have you ever wondered how airlines function, commercial aviation works, and all the concepts associated with such? Have you ever wondered what the commercial aviation landscape is all about? Join me as we attend Steve Cosgrove's seminar during Airliners International 2024, Inside Airways Magazine. It's time to learn what this magazine is all about, and I really hope all of you are excited for this. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started, everybody. Before I begin, I want to give a huge thank you to Steve Cosgrove and Airliners International for making this seminar possible. This seminar was so much fun and shows you how much enjoyment can be had at Airliners International. Be sure to check out Steve Cosgrove's full seminar on the WASP YouTube channel, as there's so much to be learned from this presentation. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the details, everybody. Alrighty, everybody, so let's go ahead and talk about how Airways Magazine's functions. So it's a really cool magazine that's been around for quite some time, and today we're going to dive into the whole seminar here by Steve Cosgrove. I want to give a huge shout out to him once again. He did a wonderful job with this 40-minute seminar. Once again, check out the full video for all the details and the insight. But today I'm going to give you a 40,000-foot overview of kind of what goes on, and that's kind of where we start today's video. That Airways Magazine provides that bird's eye 40,000 feet view of pretty much what all commercial aviation is all about. So that was really the big takeaway. So first and foremost, how this seminar started is Steve Cosgrove gave an introduction about himself and his affiliation with aviation and Airways Magazine particularly. So we started going into the details on that, and we started by explaining that Airways Magazine is a civil aviation publication, obviously looking into all the fundamentals of this sector of aviation. So that's going to be the airline landscape, the manufacturers and how they produce these commercial aircraft, and pretty much every function that goes with that, including air traffic controlling, and then we also have the ground personnel as well, and then the airline management side of it too. So there's really so much that goes into it, and that's exactly what he talked about during the introduction to the seminar. And personally, I thought this was really cool to explain. You think of the magazines like, yeah, that's really cool, but some of us unfortunately just don't have quite as much time to read all these publications, and as a result, we may just see the cover and say, oh, it's a cool airline magazine, but what really goes into it is what he talked about there, and I thought that was definitely eye-opening and inspiring for sure. So I really enjoyed that part of it and definitely want to highlight that. So I recommend checking out that part of the video for sure if you want more details on what that overview looks like, and we'll talk about particular examples as we go through today's video, but it definitely was really cool to get to see that outline. So yeah, it appears to be that Airways Magazine's been going for over 30 years, which is really fun. I'm sure that all of you have seen kind of some of the different covers that they've had. They've had that white background in the past, and now they're more to a full picture design, which is really cool. And they kind of talked about how that innovated and just what it took to, gain a catchy cover like that, which was really cool to hear about. And obviously more so at aviation seminar here, but it is cool to kind of hear about some of the fundamentals of what makes a publication and really media in general successful. So that was definitely cool to hear about as well. And then they got into some really cool examples very quickly, one of which includes the project at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. As they expand the concourses there, they're doing it in modular development, which is one of the first airports in the entire world to introduce such a concept, certainly in the United States for sure. And it was really cool to hear his perspective on it, what he's been looking into, and then obviously getting with the writers, the editors, and all the other outstanding personnel at Airways Magazine to make articles on this and publish it, which is really cool to say the least. So that was fun. And yeah, then we get into, those particular examples once again. So getting into the broad view and then the particular. So how an airline operates. So we're going into the ground crew. We're talking about the airline management inside the offices. Then we're talking about the gate personnel and what goes in that. And then obviously all the luggage personnel. I mean, you name it. There's so many particular positions, and that's what Airways Magazine does a great job in, is in every one of their publications. There's several sections, anywhere from 3 to 8 or even more than that. I'm just taking an approximation. I don't read them regularly. Unfortunately, I don't have the opportunity to, but I would definitely like to introduce that into my, what's the word? I want to introduce that into my schedule at some point for sure. It's just really easy to read the article aspect of it, but not, like the full publication. So I'm definitely interested in subscribing, making that a reality. So yeah, it is really cool they're able to highlight that, because obviously there's so many different aviation magazines, like the Flying Magazine, for example, that's more catered towards pilots and, the aircraft side of it for general aviation and so on. But Airways Magazine, particularly if you're just looking for that overview of commercial aviation, is really great, and it dives into into, the particular aspects of it, which I think is really cool. So then we go on to talk about, how the airlines get their food and the catering that goes into that. So another very lengthy process, thinking about the types of cups that these airlines use, and obviously, where they're going to get them from and how they integrate them, and, talking about concepts like Southwest moving over the bamboo structured cups, and then obviously some of the eco-friendly other versions that we have from like United and so on. So it was really cool to dive into particular examples of that, and definitely was really cool to grasp those concepts in many ways. So no doubt really fun, and definitely wanted to highlight that in so many opportunities, to say the least, excuse me. And then I'm trying to see what I have here, but So sometimes it depends on the situation, but another really cool example that was brought up during the seminar was how long it takes for a new route to be introduced. They discussed it possibly being up to a 3-year process, depending on the airport situation, the airline situation, and also all the paperwork and filing and what goes into making a new route a reality. So for me particularly, that was really interesting to hear about. Obviously, it's a very lengthy process, and air service development, I think, is one of the coolest concepts in aviation for sure. But hearing about that from his perspective, and what Airways does, once again with their writers, the editors, the researchers, all these different positions, was certainly really cool. This is another point that I don't think I wrote particularly, but I really want to highlight it as well. Another really cool element of what he talked about during this seminar for Airways Magazine was how the writers, it was I don't want to say they weren't trying to be perfectionists, but it's one of those that, these writers are very unique in the aspect of they love aviation, but they obviously, some of them don't have a professional writing background, which is really cool because most publications, you're going to see these writers have very concentrated degrees or, backgrounds in writing, which, typically it's how it goes. But I think it's really cool in aviation in this particular sector that you don't have to have that. You're still able to write about what you're passionate about, Airways Magazine's not going out there to try to be the most grammarly correct, magazine out there. I'm just quoting what they said in the seminar. It's not exactly to a T. Obviously, you want to keep it, professional and, have it pretty much all correct. There may be a slight hiccup here or there, but, it's not going to be the next, Wall Street Journal, right? That's kind of what they were getting to. This is the concept here was more to go for that aspect of being very passionate with the writers, but, also keeping, professionalism in there as well. So, they're not going for exactly perfect grammatically, but, who's reading the article is what they got to. That's what I'm trying to get to. Who's reading the article and how can you relate to that writer? And then that's another discussion that came up is the various media types in the engagement for those. So he talked very extensively about the data-driven facts, and, we're really fortunate at this time to have so much information on how long somebody reads an article for, when they decide to click off, what interests them, what time of day that they're opening this, and, all these metrics that are super important. So it was really cool to hear him highlight that, and, how he studies that data to, provide the best comprehension possible in the best media at the right times and so on. So the optimization there I thought was really awesome, and it's certainly key in this landscape. So that was definitely really cool to get the highlight as well. He also talked about Ape Geek weekends, which sounded really cool. I haven't seen any of those come to fruition yet, but hopefully those come up in the future. Definitely sounds like a really good opportunity to engage, and definitely going to be keeping my eye on that. So that's certainly really fun to hear about, and really eager to hear what that's going to encompass there, to say the least. That's really cool. And then more particular examples, like getting into the feel and what goes into, the landscape of that. So, there's one position there where the shortest person on the personnel team has to get inside and, look through all the panels and all those details, which is very interesting. So, again, I don't know about all these positions. Aviation is so fascinating in so many ways because there's always some position that you don't know about, and learning about all this is really cool, and definitely one of my drives to hopefully get, locked in and get into the Airways Magazine publications at some point is just to learn about these positions. And, any day that I learn is fantastic, and I try to learn at least 100 new facts every day. I probably can't get 100, but as much as I can learn, I'm always all for it. So this is a really good opportunity to do just that, and this definitely gets into those details as well. So it's certainly really exciting to think about it in those ways. So absolutely going to keep striding for that, to say the least. And then getting into, the then and now, that's kind of what I talked about earlier is, how we went from that white cover design all the way up to the full picture landscape that we have now. He talked about, what the writing used to look like compared to what it looks like now. And as expected, definitely highlighted what it looked like without all the technology to be able to write this, to now how you're competing with, social media platforms, for sharing this media and all the other information that goes into that. And I think they've done a really good job adopting to the digital age and obviously making it, advanced for iPads and other such devices. That's really important, and keeping it engaging as well, right? It's really challenging at this point to hook somebody for an extended period of time, and this video is a great example of that as well. But they've definitely done a really good job of adopting to it and making it as interesting as possible. So I can certainly say if I had all the time in the world, I would absolutely be diving more into the articles, and I hope to integrate it into my schedule. But we know the drill on that, so that's kind of the deal with that. So that's definitely another piece of the puzzle to keep in mind there, to say the least. And then I was a really big fan of talking about, they were talking with the details regarding inspiring, aviation as a whole, and also informing as well. And I thought that really hit home regarding, if people are reading this, and once again, positions that I'm completely unaware about, or one of you may be completely unaware about, that they get in the detail about, it's so cool to hear about these new positions and, go pursue them. Aviation's really, really fascinating with how many positions there are, but unfortunately, and hopefully this will start to change as we move forward, some of these non-pilot positions are just not highlighted very much, and it's really challenging to start to learn about them and certainly become passionate about them if we don't even know they exist. So I really appreciate Airways Magazine making it a reality to learn about some of these positions, and another reason why I really want to dive into it is not only to learn, like I talked about previously, but also to become aware and just move forward. So really happy about that, and at least have that awareness at the very least. So certainly huge right there, and that was really awesome. And then informing, obviously, with correct information and getting on into all those details, that was certainly very inspiring too, and was a huge fan of that. So that was really cool, to say the least. And then, yeah, that was back. I wrote that note about the media reception, kind of how that goes. We did talk about that, so that was awesome. And I did talk about the writing experience, so I did have a brief note on that. And then lastly, they really rounded out with some questions and talked to, really about what goes into, finding those fundamentals with the analytics and making it as engaging as possible, and talking about new ideas as well and how they're going to adopt to, what's to come in the future. And they're definitely looking at those analytics and making decisions as appropriate, which is huge. So continue to have those innovative and clever ideas, especially in the landscape they're in with long form media, I think will be huge for Airways Magazine. And I think they're going to do a really good job of continuing to feature that. So that's going to be awesome. They also had a comparison to Noel Phillips about, you have to be innovative and you don't know till you know. And they particularly brought up his 32-hour video looking out the window, which certainly all of us wouldn't have expected that to be the game changer for him, but it was the game changer for him. And that's exactly what happened there. And Airways Magazine striving to do the same. There may be a form of content that they wouldn't have expected to do really well, but anytime you're experimenting and seeing what can go well is really cool. And I really feel like that was the highlight of this whole seminar. Was there was really three main concepts. It was the inspiration aspect that was really cool there that we talked about previously, and obviously the consistency aspect of providing, information about airline operations in all these positions that we talked about previously. That's really cool. But I think honestly the biggest one, and what's made Airways Magazine so successful and will continue to drive them for many years to come, is 100% that innovation aspect, right? Anytime you innovate, you're probably going to be successful. You can name it with companies like Southwest Airlines, or any commercial publication, or any really business in general. And that's exactly what they've done. They've innovated, they've seen what people liked, and that's exactly what's got them to this point today. So overall, this was a really fun seminar. I really hope all of you enjoyed the analysis. Let me know if you've read Airways Magazine and what you think of it. If so, I absolutely will be trying to dive into as well to, feel what we talked about previously. But we're trying to do all that we can right now, and that's exactly what we'll continue to do. So it will be really fun there, to say the least. But with all that being said, everybody, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I want to thank each and one of you for watching. My name is Roger of Aviation. Take it easy, everybody. Stay safe. Trust process. Do you love and love what you do. My name is Roger of Aviation. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all soon as Roger of Aviation is signing off.